So I've seen this question pop up quite a bit when it comes to the Premier League in modern times, and it's not about justification. And that question really is an accusation of the Premier League effectively being a closed shop in all but name. Now, what I mean by that is that obviously, despite there being 3 sides that get promoted from the Championship each season and 3 sides that are relegated from the Premier League each season, effectively swapping places with each other, because of the finances in the Premier League and the gulf between the finances in the Premier League and the Championship, it's effectively a closed shop where it's almost impossible for teams to stay in the division once they have got promoted to the English top flight. But is this a fair accusation, or is this something that's a bit of recency bias coming in? Well, I think it's a bit of both. So let's start with where the accusations come from. So last season in the Premier League, the 3 sides that got promoted from the Championship the season prior in 2022-23, namely Luton Town, Sheffield United and Burnley, were all relegated from the Premier League. And in truth, they were all miles off it, particularly Sheffield United and Burnley. They were both embarrassingly bad last season. And indeed, as I know, as a proud Sheffield United fan, we broke the record for the most goals conceded in the history of the English top flight, 104 or something like that, which is just, yeah, that tells you how crap we were last season, to put it mildly politely. And it's looking as though we might have something similar this time round. I mean, not in terms of the sides being absolutely miles off it, but if you look at the Premier League table right now, you will see that all 3 sides that were promoted from the Championship last season, Ipswich Town, Leicester City and Southampton, are in the bottom 3. Now, of course, there is still a long way to go. There's 18 matches still to go in the Premier League for most teams. Ipswich Town are only outside of the safety zone, only in the relegation zone on virtue of goal difference, and indeed that's only 1 goal difference as well, behind Wolverhampton Wanderers. Leicester City are only a few points behind that, but if we're being totally honest, like I've said in many videos recently, and even questioned if Southampton are the worst Premier League side ever, they're gone. Southampton are definitely going down. But again, this is recency bias coming in a little bit, I think, because if you look at the evidence of it, all 3 Premier League Championship sides that were promoted to the Premier League survived as recently as 2022-23. So we only have to go back 3 seasons, including this one, to see an example where all 3 promoted sides stayed up. And indeed, that is something that's happened on a few occasions, and actually quite recently, 2017-18 we saw this, 2011-12 and 2001-02 as well. So it's not uncommon. And if anything, it's got more prevalent more recently. We didn't see a single example of this in the 90s when the Premier League was actually established in 92-93. So we almost had to go 10 years before it happened again. Then it happened again 10 years after that, and in the 10 years after that, it's happened twice. So if anything, that rate of survival is actually getting better. But there is a caveat to that. To see this potentially happen for the 2nd time in a row is unheard of in English football. The last time, aside from last season, that all 3 promoted sides from the Championship went straight back down was 1997-1998. So it's extremely rare that that happens. That's even less common than all 3 sides actually staying up. So again, a bit of recency bias, I think, colouring people's perspectives. But what can't be denied is the financial aspect of it, and this is what comes into it. So now we've got PSR, and we've spoke a lot about profit and sustainability rules here on footballchronicle.com. And, part of the reason why Nottingham Forest in 2022-23 were able to stay up with the other sides is because they broke the financial rules. They spent too much. And before any Forest fans come at me for this one, it's a fact. They were punished for it. Whether you agree with that punishment or not, they still broke the rules. Simple as that. And they're not the only ones. Everton have had to do it. They're an established Premier League club. Of course, they've been in the top flight for over 70 years. Only Arsenal have been there for a longer amount of time than what Everton has. So there is that too. Sides are having to effectively break the financial model to do that. And because of the way it's a 3-year rolling average of how much money you spend. And even Leicester City, they would have been punished. They should have been punished in my mind. But they managed to get out on a technicality when it came to PSR recently. So they've managed to dodge that bullet. But despite that, they still look like they're going to get relegated. They're in 19th place. They're in terrible form. They've lost 5 or 6 of the games in a row now. So, there's that too. So there's a lot going on with this. There's a lot to it, and there is no simple answer when it comes to it. But when it comes to financials, like I was just going to say as well, the gap is definitely widening. Yes, the EFL is getting more money than ever before, but the Premier League's money is just multiplying and multiplying every single time these TV rights on, renegotiated every 3-4 seasons or whatever it is. And you know, and that gap is getting more evident, because if you stay 3 seasons in the Premier League now, then you have 3 seasons of Premier League TV money and revenue, match day revenue, commercial revenue, everything, and you can use that to spend and invest in your squad. Whereas if you're like a Leicester City, for example, that has 1 season in the Championship out of these 3, it is very hard for them to actually outspend. It's impossible, actually. It's impossible for them to outspend, realistically, the other teams that are in the Premier League, the other entrenched teams. So what you then have is a situation like this, where Leicester have a squad that is, let's be honest, poor for the Premier League, but because they have spent 2 of the last 3 seasons, or 1 of the last 3 seasons in the Premier League, if they get relegated to the Championship, they then have that advantage in terms of the finances. With their PSR, they're able to spend more than, say, a Sunderland that has not been in the Premier League for 10 years or something like that now. And then on top of that, you also have the parachute payments. Teams that have been relegated in the last 3 seasons from the Premier League get parachute payments in the Premier League. So they have the added advantage of PSR and the parachute payments on top of that. And what that means is that the disparity between the sides that have come down recently from the Premier League and those that haven't been in the Premier League ever, or haven't been in the Premier League in any of the last 3 seasons, is massive. And we're seeing this now. Look at the top 3 teams in the Championship: Leeds United, Burnley, Sheffield United. Sheffield United and Burnley were relegated last season. Leeds were relegated the season before that. It's no coincidence that they are up there and looking like they're probably going to be the 3 sides that go up to the Premier League. Obviously, one of them have to do it through the playoffs, and I'm hoping it's not Sheffield United, because we're terrible at those. Doesn't matter how much money we've got, we're not going to go up for the playoffs. But anyway, I'm digressing. So then, and it's not impossible. It's not impossible. I mean, Nottingham Forest have done it. They did overspend, so maybe I'll discount them saying that. Not long ago, Brighton, Brentford, they were in the Championship. They've established themselves as Premier League clubs now. Obviously, Ipswich Town, they've managed to do back-to-back promotions up to the Premier League. So it's not impossible by any means, but it's getting increasingly difficult, and that gap is just going to continue to widen. And this is another thing I just want to touch on as well, just before I close out this video, just to give a mention to the Championship, right? If you don't get promoted after those 3, and I've said this as a Sheffield United fan, I'm terrified of this, and I'm sure Burnley fans, Leeds fans of any club that's been relegated in the last couple of years or so and hasn't got promoted back, you'd be terrified of not getting promoted to the Premier League. It's not a case of, we want to go up because we want to get to the Premier League. No. We want to go up because we want to survive financially. If we lose that parachute payments, if we lose that PSR rolling average of revenue, we're screwed. And then to get promoted from that is you have to offload a massive amount of players. You have to do an absolute fire sale. And then you end up in this weird limbo down at the bottom end of the Championship, where the likes of Swansea have found themselves recently, Stoke City, Norwich, teams that have been in the Premier League in the past. But realistically, it's going to take an absolute miracle for them to get back up again, because they've lost the Premier League money. They've lost the parachute payments. So now they're purely on Championship revenue. And to get up from the Championship, you need to be spending almost like a Premier League club. That is the fine line that you need to tread. That is what Leicester did. That is why they got found guilty of PSR breaches. And they only got out on a technicality. And that loophole now apparently has been closed. No team can do that now. The amount of teams that have been promoted from the Championship to the Premier League, and they've said if we didn't get promoted, we would have gotten done by PSR and everything. Derby County failed to get up to the Premier League, got relegated down to League One. Villa, when they got promoted from the Championship, if they didn't get promoted that season, they'd have been screwed. They would have broken PSR. And other teams that have tried to get up from the Championship, I'm really digressing here, but this is my last point, don't worry. Other teams have tried desperately, spent massively to try and get up to the Premier League, and have ended up going down to League One. Sheffield Wednesday, Huddersfield Town. There's loads of examples of it. It's incredible what's happened to them, really. And they've all either still in League One in Huddersfield's case, or have been in League One like Wednesday's and Derby's case. And there'll be more. It doesn't matter what the name of the club is. The financial gulf is so massive that breaking that system is so tough. It's doable, but it's really tough. It's really, you have to be a very well-run club to do that. And quite frankly, there's not many of them. There's not many Brightons and Brentfords out there. There's far more clubs that spend and waste money unnecessarily than use it effectively like they do. But anyway, guys, that's my take on it. That was meant to be a 5-minute video. It turned into a 10-minute video. But I hope I got my point across. What do you guys think? What can be done to alleviate this? Does the Premier League need to give more money to the Championship, not in the form of parachute payments? And should parachute payments be done away with? Because this yo-yoing, we're going to see more of it. Next season in the Championship, Southampton will probably get promoted. Leicester will probably get promoted. Ipswich, if they go down, they'll probably get promoted. But even if it's not one of them, if it's Crystal Palace or if it's Everton, if it's Wolves, I bet you anything they'll bounce back up. I bet you anything that'll happen. Because the financial gulf is too much. They can't compete. How can they? Anyway, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I've had 1 or 2 thoughts about all this. Like, share, comment, subscribe, ring the bell as well. And we'll see you very soon, guys. Have a good one.